ideology getting jammed, you get Poetry Slam.
Hello, Southern guys and gals, and welcome to Poetry Slammed, revived after nearly a year since the last one, a series where I react a la 2009 style to various awful poems posted around the internet, then properly rated the way that I do. If you need a reminder, and honestly I need one as well, as to how I go about rating the poem, I have my handy dandy slam sheet here to present to you. I rate the poem based on context/message, structure/verses, transparency, and rhythm, and for the lulz, I also give it a bonus score called the Shrillometer, as it's customary for most of these poems to be extremely insufferable in nature. The overall score will be based on the averages of the previous 4 scores, which has never reached any higher than 5 because, as the title implies, we are slamming poems, not glamming them. What new poem do I have for you today? Well, considering that I've gone over poems that involve different subjects not pertaining to me, I felt it was necessary to go over a poem that is a bit more personal to me. See, I have Asperger's, but unlike most of the autistic fucks out there on the internet, I don't suddenly feel compelled to all over the internet because someone calls me a name or whatnot. Arvind Nandakumar, who presumably has autism, feels as though he can opine on this condition, or the bad perception that it has whenever it's mentioned. What I can get from this poem, upon multiple listens, is that we should be more compassionate to the idea that we shouldn't deal with the nature of autism and treat it like a blessed gift. I, for one, am not for that notion, especially with the way that fatness and obesity is now treated as some kind of symbol of empowerment and not as a dangerous lifestyle choice that needs to be curbed. Even more so, considering how autism, if not curbed, can lead people to believe that they are otherkin, transgender, the fucking works. Doesn't help you also got anti-vaxxers who are causing a sudden increase in kids with autism, so yeah, I'm not privy to the idea that autism is a special gift that we should bloom like a flower, but who knows, maybe I'll be able to sympathize with this if we actually delve in. Let's find out.
The parents of autism say disease instead of neurodiversity.
That's a big yikes for me already, and not even 9 seconds in. So for starters, one of the few structures of this poem that Arvind accompanies is this autism speak verse, but as a result of delivery, it's confusing if he means the way in which autism speaks, or if the parents of autism speak in a certain manner. Because of this, he basically made a redundant statement by saying speak say within a given line. There's some autism for you as well. Secondly, neurodiversity, huh? The precursor to inclusivity and the bastardization of the word diversity as a whole, where instead of calling dumb kids retards, we call them mentally challenged, because damned if we couldn't call a spade, eh?
Fix instead of adapt. Cure instead of survive.
Well, shit! I didn't know autism could kill someone like someone born with cerebral palsy or polio. You know what's funny about autism is that it's a social disorder, so no amount of tolerance could ever possibly cure it. It has to come from the person who inhibits it, unlike someone who, say, suffers from cerebral palsy. But hey, don't let that stop you from somehow making this false equivalency.
Exterminate. Test before birth and abort.
Not sure how parents could anticipate their child having autism unless we live in a future depicted like in Gattaca where they could find that out. But more importantly, have autistic fetuses been aborted? Again, it seems the opposite is true, where you have idiot anti-vaxxers accidentally creating more autistic children as a result of pushing away proper vaccine use, as well as polio. Even with him using negative connotations to present autism as being misunderstood, I'm not convinced that it should ever be seen as good. Sure, we shouldn't kill people for it or judge them so harshly as to extradite them from society, but it most certainly be not encouraged.
Take Tesla AC current. Take dashes of poetry from Emily Dickinson. Take Einstein's theory of relativity.
I wasn't sure what he meant when providing these examples until I realized that the makers of these things were either alluded to as having some form of autism or were medically diagnosed with such. What I don't understand is that there isn't some group of people who have ever seriously considered these feats be relinquished just because those people happen to be autistic. Yes, autistic people can make great fucking things, but they also can do stupid shit too, like with the aforementioned pretending to be a fucking animal and socially isolating yourself from life. Me wanting that behavior checked and not to be treated as special is not me saying that ideas should not be passed around. Stop with these binary conclusions.
Say vaccine instead of genetic inheritance.
Both are true when it comes to autism, so it depends on whether the person wants to go about doing that. And even so, vaccines aren't always guaranteed to work, as diseases and disorders are always evasive, always adapting to spread to whatever they can. And yes, I'm saying with 100% certainty in my voice that autism is a disorder, it's not natural.
Problem instead of child.
I'm getting really sick of this "you think this way when you should really think this other way" attitude from Arvind, like as if the two phrases aren't ancillary in any way. If it was really a problem for my parents to deal with someone with Asperger's, you think they'd put so much flack into my future livelihood? How about this? Autism is a problem, our child has autism. Not that our child is a problem.
Autism tries speaking, shuts down before speaking, gets shut down before speaking, tries counting odd numbers.
What a clever way to illustrate the mind of someone with autism, Arvind. But other than that, the implication here is that the behavior of autism doesn't come primarily from the autist, but those who doggone said autistic person. I've had doubts, I've had uncertainties whether I should say something or not, but all of that really just came from my headspace and not some person judging me by my condition alone. You think that with all the people that exist on this earth who have no clue who I am, you think that'd be a troubling thing to find out, wouldn't it?
Counted as odd number. Autism says, leave me alone. Gets slapped in face, told for your own good.
Well, Jesus, never got that from any time I just wanted to be left alone. In fact, I rarely even had to say that to elucidate the point. I would just simply not respond to the person talking to me, acting like they were invisible to me and that I was deaf. Seems like Arvind might have had a more abusive past than me.
Show me a talent or show me an institution. Speak up. Stop speaking. Speak up. Why are you speaking up for yourself? Go play with the other kids.
I guess in the mind of an autist, this would all come up as contradictory demands and inconsistent ones as that to the nature. But for my head, I see it as day-to-day people telling Arvind multiple different things and him taking each one equally as gospel. You're the only one who gives people other power to their voices, so if it bothers you, stop listening. You're the master of your own thoughts and destiny.
Why did you play with the other kids? It's your fault. For picking a fight. For looking for trouble, for speaking. Were you not paying attention? Stop speaking, stop eating.
Stop eating? Did you live in a community that's into fasting? Okay, I get he's going to paraphrase the exact opposite because the idea here is that autism can't read between the lines of the demands, but again, unless this is him digging into his dark past where his parents gave him contradictory demands, only see this as him taking every grain of salt thrown at him like a diamond. It's this nature of confirm everything everyone says to you that causes confusion from autists because they have the brief naivety not to be skeptical of someone else's words.
Stop stimming, stop crying, stop existing.
Jesus Christ, Arvind, you really know how to get hyperbolic with the demands. Also, yeah, stop crying, you fucking little baby. And that's not even exclusive to someone with autism. Crying is unproductive, it's only good in seldom moments, but being constantly at the verge of tears about every slight will only make you weak and unpleasant to be around, contrasting the very attempt of this poem to make people more understanding of autism.
Your purpose is to be pitied.
Actually, no. Unless I decide that I will use my autism as a crutch for whenever I fuck up, which people on the internet who have autism constantly do, you're demonstrating the patronizing attitude towards autists where you try to coerce sympathy from autists is hypocritical in your attempt to make it seem like a normality. It isn't working.
Be a poster child, a donation jar, raise money to find a cure or find a test.
Oh yeah, those fucking assholes who are charitable enough to give me free money to cure for a social disorder that I myself must correct. Oh, I'm just suffering from success. Let's stop doing that, shall we? Oh hey, on top of that, let's stop finding a cure for cancer because we wouldn't want to patronize a fucking child for having an illness, right?
Abort this mistake, wipe us out before birth, keep the good parts.
You really want autism to be analogous to race or ethnicity, huh? Sure, it doesn't make sense given that there is the autism spectrum, and sure, the abortion rate is at an all-time low and hasn't increased as a result of the rise of autist children, but whatever gives autism the sympathy angle, in spite of the fact you don't want us to be pitied. Yeah, I'm not for Spurg solidarity, thank you very much.
This isn't complicated. Keep the good parts, get rid of the bad parts. You are the bad parts, your work is the good parts. Just let us use you. Let us use you.
See what I mean? Where he'll first say keep the good parts as in to imply that we should shed our weaknesses, but then equates that to trying to wipe autism out like genocide. Autistic ostriches ostracized in Auschwitz, as the saying goes, and say that shit 10 times fast. There's always 0 or 100 of our remained, no middle ground for the black and whites of this narrative.
Friends of autism speak, say,
there we go again with the fractured nonsensical sentence.
high functioning.
That would most definitely fit me, as I'm able to help customers at the till, even at the most rudimentary. It's funny, because I actually wrote a poem in regards to how well I function at the register, and that in spite of the weirdness and fuck-ups, that I make it work in spite of it. Autism is an obstacle to get over, not an excuse, and certainly not a friend.
Say, that's a compliment. Say, give me a hug. Takes a hug, gives chew toy as present, says chew on this.
Well, shit, Arvind. I really thought you'd start to get more positive before you dashed my hopes away. Funny, I never was given a chew toy ironically as to treat me like an animal, Arvind. You must have some really bad friends. My friends never gave a shit about my autism. They treated it as innocuous, as it should be. And hey, look at that. Not only can I disregard my autism, I don't feel the need to bring it up unless it pertains to something else.
Get out of your head.
Yay!
I'm the freaking loser! Get out of your mind! Say, look at me. Why are you looking at me? It was just a hug. Don't answer. Don't answer. I said stop speaking. Were you not paying attention? It's puzzling, isn't it?
The whole eye contact thing is the only part that I can definitely relate to, but again, that comes from my own delusions and thoughts in my mind and not actual perceptions from other people, which makes me think that all of this is Arvind's own assumptions about what other people are thinking of him. I get that autism comes with the major caveat of social anxiety, but the only solution to it is not to cloister and treat it as normal. You do need to go out and see people. You do need to talk and speak up. It's the only way to know at what frequency you do want to see people and when you want to speak. Otherwise, you'll be at a loss your whole life.
To be a collector's item for social justice.
Ha! If any of those social justice hacks ever tried using me for a pawn, I would denounce the shit out of that. Not like they would anyway, because based on the oppression stacked, being white, cis, and male, I'm still far off better than most in spite of it.
A demon child in some parts of your own country.
Going for the extremes again, huh? You do-rag and headset-wearing, long fingernail gesturing Spurg Lord. Also, the Middle East is a progressive haven. What are you talking about? You see how tolerant they are of gays and anime body pillows, that they're just throwing them off in the name of tolerance. Well, for my money's worth, this has been pretty level-headed, even if paltry.
A Nobel Prize in retrospect, and a nuisance to everyone else.
Seems like the perception of autism is so multifaceted that it's almost like being a man can make you either equate to being literally Hitler or the greatest inventors of our time. Funny how in your attempt to generalize autism to be incredibly low, that you find that it's equally maligned as it is praised for.
Autism tries speaking, has tried speaking, tried to diagnose itself, show that this existence is worth it.
If you value your life based on whether you can justify a social disorder, then you aren't living. This is no different to someone who bases all their achievements either on their own skin color in relation to another's, or their beliefs on the idea that skin color has a belief system. This is primarily why no one gives a shit whether Emily Dickinson or Nikola Tesla might have been autists, because they achieved something in spite of it and would be remembered for their contributions rather than their faults. And I personally think you should do the same rather than let it control how you function in life.
This disease, the hand of Midas, turning anything it touches into gold. Curse, turning anything it touches into gold.
Obvious retreaded analogy is obvious. Also, you could have just said, the hand of Midas, a blessing and a curse, turning everything into gold, rather than having to restate that same line, but hey, what do I know? Not that I've been writing this shit for on 8 years straight now.
Dear Autism Speaks.
Is Autism Speaks a movement, YouTube channel, a metaphor for autism speaking? Kind of funny that the title itself has very little to do with the actual subject matter of the poem. Misleading much?
When you find the cure, don't call me first.
The flourish, being that Arvind had autism all this time. Probably noted that with his weird hand movements and his choice of attire, but all in all, this was more of a poem fixating on obfuscating its point rather than addressing the nature of autism itself. While Arvind might be well-intentioned, he can't decide if he wants autism to be treated as a crutch to life or be treated as innocuous, so he goes with both, contradicting previous statements in the poem that allude to other people speaking on behalf of the subject. Definitely one of the more tolerable poems I've had to deal with in this series, even if it falters on proper structure and wavers most of its cadence. So let's do the scoring now, from 1 to 10 as always. For context/message, I'll give it a 5, as Arvind either interprets the way that autism speaks in the mind of one who has one, or interpret the way other people deal with those who have it. He has difficulty trying to convey what parts are we to discern as him paraphrasing someone else saying it, and it being his own words conveying the confusion. He dances around the idea of wanting autism to be praised, but also demonizes the way it's treated like a trophy for another's own personal gains. So with that, he sits comfortably in the middle. For structure/verses, I give it a 4. While there is some structure to the phrasing of said autistic ramblings, again, as I said earlier, Arvind has difficulty trying to convey whether it's in his own words or if he's quoting someone else. Also, I might add the speak-say bit that would trigger a bunch of grammar Nazis like myself into confusion, and I doubt that this is a result of him as being autist, and more to do with not being so bright to deliver them. For transparency, I give the highest score of any score I've given thus far on Poetry Slammed, a solid 8. Arvind is amicable and well-meaning in his delivery, so even if I have qualms with some of the lines he has said, I can tell it's coming from the heart. Unlike the so-to-speak Franny Choi's or Elisa Chavez's, who prefer to dictate platitudes with no heart to them, Arvind is most certainly personal about this particular poem. And finally, rhythm, I give it a 3, as Arvind tries to rely on his weird hand movements to know which times he has to break, and with his head bobbing upwards for a few pregnant pauses as if to try to remember what the next lines of his poem were, Arvind hasn't quite got a beat going for this song, even if there is a foundation for one there. And that would put Arvind Nandakumar's poem at a medium 5. Now, the highest rated poem that I've ever given so far, making it the only one to be even put at middling. Surprisingly enough, Arvind also gets a 0 on the Shrillometer, our first in this series as well. It might be personal bias, as I can relate to the idea of dealing with autism, just not in the way that Arvind wants to address it, but maybe for this once, I don't feel like being an utter dick to a particular poem. Hopefully this near-year hiatus didn't upset you.